This is How to Business and Show Business, where we talk about the business of show, the podcast that discusses ways to work smarter, not harder. If you're a performer at the beginning of your career or a student interested in going into the performing arts, this is the podcast for you. For more about the podcast, you can find our website at businessandshowbusiness.com. There you can learn more about the business of performing arts with coursework, videos with shop talk, and interviews with other professional performers. Now here's your host, CorBen.
Hello, I'm your host, CorBen, and welcome back to another episode of How to Business and Show Business. Before we get started, go ahead and click that subscribe button so you can stay caught up anytime there's a new episode. Friends, thanks for joining me for another episode. I'm so excited to share this discussion and this week's guest, Christopher Howard. In this week's episode, Christopher and I discuss the role of a dance captain, something he's qualified to talk about. Most recently, Christopher was the dance captain for the North American Broadway National Tour production of Anastasia. He's dance captain for tours and regional productions like The American in Paris, Phantom, Roger and Hammerstein's Cinderella, to name a few. When he's not maintaining the integrity of a show, he's also a fitness instructor and a dance teacher. Currently, he's getting his degree in business management, focusing on digital and social media. Christopher sheds light on what it means to be an effective dance captain, how to juggle under pressure, how not to let one's ego get in the way, and many more. Just as a reminder, this episode, along with several others, was recorded over the summer of last year. So, without further ado, here's my interview with Christopher Howard.
Christopher, the reason why I asked you here today is because we're going to talk about some dance captaining, of which I know you have a plethora of experience doing.
I would say so, yeah.
Pretty lengthy, but we'll get into it. But before we do that, I always like to start with these two questions. Who is Christopher Howard?
Oh gosh, how long do you have? Perfect. Well, I'm a professional singer, dancer, actor. Currently based out of New York City. I'm just home upstate right now due to the current health crisis that our country is facing. I originally am from this area, from upstate New York. I also am a group fitness instructor for Equinox gyms in New York and across the country. And I find the older I get, the more my career is kind of evolving and changing, which I'm really excited about. But first and foremost, I consider myself a professional actor trying to make his way in the business and living in New York City.
So you lightly just said it, but what hobbies and or interests do you then have outside of the business?
Oh yeah, fitness has definitely become one of my biggest hobbies. It's become a new passion, and for me, it's kind of gone hand in hand with my love of the arts because through dance, especially, I found a great love and passion for teaching, and I've been able to cross that over into the fitness world as well. So now that I'm so fitness minded and that started to interest me, I've kind of taken my skills as a teacher and put that into that world as well. So fitness is not only a hobby and an interest of mine on my own time, but I've turned it into a passion and another career as well. Other than that, I'm actually really interested in politics. One of my hobbies as I've been on the road is to tour all of the U.S. state capitol buildings. And so far, I think I've hit 45 of them out of the 50, which is a pretty big feat considering how big the country is.
Right.
But just politics in general has really interested me, especially the older I get, the more important a lot of these issues become to me personally, the more I find that I'm invested in not only local politics in my own area, but politics across our whole country.
Wow. Well, I guess you would get a chance to visit most of these capitals via tours and things that, pop by and say, wait, have you ever been to Alaska though?
I have. I sure have.
Shut the front door.
I really have. Honestly, I took a layoff. It was a layoff week when I was on the American in Paris tour, and I flew to Juneau and I stayed there I think for 3 days, and I saw the Capitol building. I went up Mount Roberts.
Yes, you did. You did.
I just went on my own just for like a little 3-day vacay. And I've been to Hawaii also, which is kind of far away, but I went to Hawaii on like a mini vacation also on a layoff from one of my tours. And
Mhm.
it's more of the obscure ones I haven't been to, like North Dakota, South Dakota, West Virginia, Montana. Those are the harder ones to get to, you know.
Okay.
Not a lot of tours play Helena, Montana, you
I'm weak.
know.
Okay, so now that we know a little bit about you, let's dive into the professional side. So, did you have any pre-existing interests for the position of a dance captain, or was it something that developed over time?
You know, I really didn't at first. I'll preface this with saying that I started dancing in general very late. I didn't actually start dancing until I was 18. So when I really started to work professionally in the business, like my first like national tours, I did an international tour first, then moved on to like Broadway US tours. I still, of course, considered myself a dancer, but I didn't think I quite had the skill set that other dancers had. So dance captaining was never on my radar. It's not something I thought that I had the skill set for, and it's not something I was gunning for from day one. It wasn't until my second national tour, which was the new Phantom of the Opera tour, I was hired just as a male swing because I was able to do the dance choreography and sing some of the solo singer parts and such. And I wasn't hired as an assistant dance captain. That was my eventually became my title for that show. I was just the male swing, and they decided throughout the rehearsal process that the dance captain, who was the female dancer swing, would need some assistance with the show. And they figured, in watching me in rehearsals and watching how I worked, they thought I would be the best fit. And I had no experience doing it, but I said, okay, sure. I'll take that challenge on. And through that, my love for it kind of grew. And now it's not necessarily a goal of mine in every production I do or every company I work with, but it's definitely something I love doing. And it's something I'm more focused on moving forward.
Well, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but it's almost starting to be as though a trend in your career via the jobs that you've done, because you've done it, what, 6, 7 times now, right?
Yeah, it has. I feel like that it's one of those things that you kind of get pigeonholed into when people
Mhm.
see it on your resume. They see, oh, this person's been a dance captain X number of times, so we should hire them to do that because they obviously have the skill set for it. The same I find happens in being a swing in a lot of productions is that they see on your resume that that's something you've been successful at multiple times, and they kind of pigeonhole you into that and think automatically, great, swing dance captain, done.
Right. So then, let me ask you this then. What are some hard things and easy things that you learned along the way about being a dance captain?
You know, I actually thought this question over quite a bit because there's a lot of hard things that that I can definitely bring to light. I was trying to really think about the easy things. I'm not sure that any of it's easy per se. I'm going to start with that because that's actually the more challenging one to answer.
Mhm.
For me, I like problem solving and I like helping people just in general. So for me, that's like the easy aspect. I like the challenge of, we have X number of people out of the show. How can we make everything work? Or we have to teach this many people in a short amount of time. How can we make that work? So that problem solving and that interaction with everyone from people on a managerial level, through the cast, through the crew, that's something for me that's easy. I like doing that. I like the organization. I like the challenge of it. Other than that, I'm not sure that anything else dance captain wise is easy per se. What I do find, kind of on the same vein, I find one of the most difficult things about being a dance captain, and something that I'm still learning about on every show I do, and something that I'm still improving upon, is how to work with, unlimited types of people. Every person has a different learning threshold. Every person has a different learning style. Every person has a different way that they'll receive, I don't want to say criticism, but receive notes and receive feedback and receive ideas on what they're doing in the show and how to improve upon it. So you can't speak to every actor or every dancer in a production the same way. And you can't approach teaching every actor, every dancer in a production the same way. So I'm trying to improve as an instructor, as a teacher, on how to best serve every single person in the room, whether it's individually or at the same time. And I find that can be very challenging because everyone is so different, and you need to find what works for every single person to keep the company as successful as you can.
Well, and then and as you're talking about this is something that I'm starting to notice. But you're human too, and people, when they come to you and they have all these questions and they have all these demands, is it okay to sometimes? I know it's okay, but I'm just how best you receive it. I don't know. Let me get back to you.
Oh, absolutely. And I find the more I've gone on with my career, and the older I get, the more willing and open I am to be the first person to say, I don't know. I've done a number of productions where there's so much choreography or so much staging or just so intricate details that no one person can be expected to know everything off the top of their head. And so I have become not afraid to be the one to say, you know what, I don't know the answer, but I will get you an answer. And I feel like that is one of the main jobs as a dance captain, is you don't need to know everything right off the top of your head, but it's that willingness to help and the willingness to get the information for people. So I have no problem anymore being like, you know what, I don't know. I don't know what count you move on. I don't know where you come from, but I'll get you an answer by the end of the day. And 99 times out of 100, I do.
Well, and then I'll be the first to admit, when and I say we, the proverbial here, folks, when we're in studio rehearsal, sometimes there are times when I forget to, if not lazy, and don't jot things down right away because I'm like, oh, I remember it. No, bitch, you ain't gonna fucking remember it. There's so much that's happening, like when we're sitting down and when we're having those morning meetings. Okay, great. And they're raffling off all the notes, right? Do you think that sometimes people just either, as you said, have different learning paths? Oh, I think that I'm going to remember this later. And or they have so much jumbled down that they don't even know what they're looking at in the midst of the haze of writing. As you just said, like sometimes we all have different ways processing and receiving. Do you think maybe we have different ways of giving feedback back to what we were just told?
Oh, absolutely. I think some people can receive those notes or that feedback specifically and just kind of get up on their feet and do it. Some people need to try it a few times. Some people only need to hear it once and say, okay, I'll fix it next time. So I think there's also a learning curve in that, in knowing, as a dance captain, that I might give somebody a note or some feedback or a fix. And for some people, it might get fixed immediately, like the next performance, the next rehearsal. Some people, it might not get fixed for a week or two. Some people might have misunderstood what I told them. And maybe that's on me. And I take that on me and say, okay, then I need to approach it a different way. So there's absolutely a learning curve with people getting up and doing things on their feet as well.
So while we're building the show, and as we're getting ready to closer and closer to showtime, and the thoughts that are in your head, when the show does eventually become relinquished over to you and the stage manager, how do you keep up the integrity of the show?
Well, I guess that depends on what else I'm doing other than being the dance captain. Most of the productions I've been in as a dance captain, I've also been an offstage swing, which means that, that I'm not necessarily in the show every day, but I'm backstage or in the theater ready to go on if someone's out of the show. So when that's the case, I most often, if I'm not needed in a rehearsal or needed backstage for any reason, I'll go out into the audience and actually watch the show. So that way I can not only keep learning for me and maybe focus on one person or focus on a number in general so that I can improve what knowledge I have of the show. But then I can also watch for notes and to give feedback and to say, okay, that looks a little messy. I can make that a little cleaner. This person's moving at the wrong time. So then I can use that information and turn those into notes that I'll give to people so that the show stays as clean and precise and meticulously detailed as, on day one, as it is on maybe day 30, as it is maybe a year or two later. Now, it's a different story if I am in the show, and that's something that I'm also still learning a lot about, because I've had a few regional productions recently where I've been the dance captain, but I'm in the show at the same time. So I can't necessarily watch everything. I can't necessarily have eyes on every person or on the big numbers because I'm in them or I'm busy doing my own performance. And I've met that with varying success, I think. And I've also there's also been different theaters have different ways of working with their dance captains in those situations. For example, a show I did last here in upstate New York, I was dance captain and in the show at the same time. So what they would do is once a week they would record the show, a video of it, and then between shows on Saturdays, I would sit and watch the video, mostly the big dance numbers, and would take notes from there. And then I could give notes out to people to make sure everything was staying clean and precise. And that's not the most ideal way to approach it because then you're only monitoring the show once a week, but it worked. And that show wasn't super choreography heavy, so it was okay. And then another show, actually, that you and I worked on together, doing Cinderella at Paper Mill Playhouse. I was also the dance captain while being in the show. But in that case, I had an assistant, and my assistant was a swing who was not in the show every day. So he was able to help me on the sideline. Even though he was an assistant, I saw him more as like my co-dance captain because he was more able to watch and keep an eye on the show than I was, to be honest with you. We worked really well together, and I trusted him to help me visualize mistakes and help keep that integrity of the show from him being off stage and me being on stage.
Now, let me ask you this, because whether you realize it or not, this is just the trend that I've noticed with dance captains. Do you have any aspirations of them becoming a choreographer yourself?
I do not. No, I don't. I don't have a passion for creating. I don't think I have the vision for creating dance numbers in a big show. It's just not something that's in my skill set. Have I done it before on like a tiny scale? Sure, of course I have. And, sometimes I'll create combinations to teach a dance class, but even that, to be completely honest, I don't love doing. If I'm creating like tendu combinations for a ballet class or something, fine, I like that. But if you want me to like create a music theater number for like a competition or something, I don't love it personally. Can I do it? Yes. Are they always great? No. But I personally have no aspirations of being a choreographer. I find that I much prefer, and I have a love for being like a repetiteur of sorts of maintaining somebody else's work and teaching somebody else's work. I find even when I teach music theater dance classes, I love teaching, like, let me teach you choreography from the Phantom of the Opera. Let me teach you choreography from An American in Paris. Rather than here's this combination that I created that's not as great. So I don't want to create anything at all. I just want to help maintain other people's work and teach other people's work to other companies.
I mean, I get that. Some people, what's that famous saying? Not my ministry. Like, you do what you do well, and other things it's like, okay, I'm gonna let someone else take over, and best of luck.
Totally.
Okay, so now that we've delved into that, let's backtrack on your dance captain history, shall we?
Okay.
So actually, it's not the most recent thing that you've done, but I'm so curious by this. So when you did An American in Paris, right? You were the resident dance supervisor, dance captain, fight captain, swing, and understudy. Okay, listen.
Yeah.
Someone's brain can only compute, but so much. So you're doing 5 different things at 5 different times.
Yeah, I was.
And on a tour. Come on now.
Yeah. And that was so daunting, I'll just say from the get-go, because the show was still open on Broadway when we started rehearsing the tour. And the woman who came in as my assistant, as the assistant dance captain, was in the Broadway production. So she already knew the show. And I knew nothing. She was obviously very helpful and very supportive of me, but I was just like, what am I getting myself into? It's one of the biggest dance shows probably done in years. And again, it was, this was technically, I mean, other than a small regional production that I'm sure we'll get to, a Fiddler on the Roof, years and years and years prior, this was my first real experience as like the dance captain of a show. So I was terrified. I was like, I don't know if I'm capable. I don't know if I can do this. And I literally thought that for weeks and weeks and weeks. so I started I don't want to say just, but I started as the dance captain, one of the male swings, and an understudy to one of the principal roles. The fight captain job came on later when the gentleman who was our fight captain left the show. So they put that responsibility on me, thinking, well, he already knows 99% of the show. Let's just teach him the fight stuff as well. And fortunately for An American in Paris, there wasn't a lot of fight choreography. So that was a simpler job than it would be on other shows. And then the resident position was an addition later on. Now, a resident for most tours is kind of like it's more of a managerial position. So not only was I still in the show and I was still the dance captain, but as a resident, I took on more of managerial duties, like helping create the schedules, continuing to teach people the show, but having a hand in casting and, who's going to go on from night to night if people are out of the show, and running rehearsals, building rehearsals. It just gave me a little bit more of a figure of authority. And they had done that specifically because at the year mark for An American in Paris, mind you, this is a super physically demanding show. So a year into the tour, we had about 23 people decide they were going to leave the show, cast members, out of like 35, which is a huge, unbelievably huge number of people to leave all at once. You're basically remounting the show from the ground up at that point. So knowing we had such an immense, almost impossible responsibility to teach 23 new people and put them all into the show at the same time, they I guess you could say they bumped me up to be a resident. So I had a little bit more authority, and they made my assistant dance captain my co-dance captain. So technically she and I were both dance captains at the same time. I was a resident, so I still had some position of authority. And on top of that, we had a resident director who was also a dance person, who was like above me authority-wise. So we had a bit of a hierarchy, but the three of us worked so seamlessly together that we were able to teach 20-something new people in like 4 or 5 weeks and get them into the show. So yeah, it was a Herculean task to do that. And it was a Herculean ask for me to have what felt like 20 different jobs on the same show. But I got to know the show so well over the course of almost 2 full years that it all worked, and I hopefully I think I was pretty successful at all of those jobs.
Literally juggling. It is on your resume. So,
Yeah.
And I think this is something very important to key in. Man or woman, doesn't matter whether they're the dance captain. Do you feel as though you have been given, to your credit for the work that you've put in and for the position that you hold, the respect that you deserve? Now let me reframe this question. When it was the first time that you were dance captaining with, say, Fiddler on the Roof, did you feel as though people took you seriously?
Well, and that, yes, I suppose so. But I will say with that was a regional production that I did like the summer after high school.
Okay.
And there was a lot of choreography in it, but I was not a dancer at the time. I was not a dance captain at the time. So that's, even though it is a credit that I have and I loved doing that show, it's not something I see as really a strong part of my dance captain career. Now, moving on to like when I was the assistant for Phantom and then moving forward to American in Paris, I did have the respect of people, but I had to earn it. I had to work for it, especially in a very dance-heavy show like An American in Paris. I would often get pushback, either on notes I was given or changes I wanted to make or little fixes I was trying to help with. I found with that show in particular, I did get more pushback than I would have expected at first. What did help eventually was that when this new, almost entirely new company came in at the year mark, I taught them the show. I mean, myself, my co-dance captain and our resident director, we taught the show to these new people. So I had I guess I would say the respect from them from day one, in that I'm giving you the knowledge of the show. So trust that I'm going to know what's best for you. And with a lot of those roles, more so the men in the ensemble for this newer company of the show, I had done a lot of their tracks or their parts in the show as a swing. So I could give them firsthand knowledge of, look, I've done your part before, I've done this track before, let me tell you what works best. So I did find that I had the respect, but I feel like, as with anything, you have to earn that respect. And I find that as a dance captain, I have my own weaknesses, I have my own flaws, and I have some aspects of my teaching styles, my personalities that not everyone vibes with 100%, and that's okay, because that happens. So I find consistently that I am always working as a dance captain to not only earn people's respect, but to keep it, and help them understand that whatever I'm doing, I'm saying, I'm teaching you, I'm giving you notes. It's never a personal affront. It's never a personal attack. I'm just trying to make you look the best you can look, and I'm trying to make the show the best it can be.
So then I have two questions that piggyback off that. Let's just start with the dance captain first. When you are someone who is either new to being a dance captain or someone who's been in the game for a while as a dance captain, what are some do's and don'ts?
I think a major do, which I also am still learning, especially as I get older, is to be patient, not only with other people, but with yourself. Because dance captaining any show, whether it's a very simple dance show or it's the most complicated dance show on Broadway, is a big ask. It's a big responsibility. So you need to be patient with yourself in learning the show, and trust that you will learn everything, even though it'll take a bunch of time, and to be patient with everybody in the show, not only the cast, like on stage, but the crew and management and everybody, because everyone has a huge job to do in a production, and you have to be patient with every single person. And again, going back to, people have different learning styles, people have different learning curves. It might take someone longer to pick up choreography or to fix a note than someone else. So being patient with them is first and foremost. I found, for me, when I was a younger dance captain and newer at the job and younger in age, I was very like instant gratification. I would see a mistake in the show, be watching it, I'd write it down, like, I need to fix that, like, tonight, tomorrow, I need to fix it right now. And I kind of realized as things went on that, like, you know, as long as something's not injuring someone, putting anyone's safety at risk, whatever, it's fine. The note will get fixed, you will get it fixed. It might get fixed tomorrow, it might get fixed next week. But I had that, like, that young, anxious energy of, like, I got to fix this now. I have to make everything perfect. And now I'm realizing, not only for dance captain, but in my own life, to pick my battles, you know, right. To be like, that can wait. That's not as important. This can be fixed. That can just stay as it is. So I think, again, a major do is to just be patient with yourself and with everybody. Another do, I would say, is to be as organized and detailed as you possibly can in taking notes, in watching the show often, in going back and watching the video if you have access to one, because ultimately the more knowledge you have, the better. So you'll never have too much knowledge on a show. So the more you can write down the counts, write down the choreography, you know, take videos to have for yourself if you're allowed to do that, making charts, making books, taking notes. The more information and knowledge you have, the better. So whatever's, as a dance captain, is your strongest way to keep that information, do it, and do it to the best of your ability, so that there's no question and there's always a reference point for the show. As far as don'ts, I have worked with people in positions of authority in the past who have let the authority of being a dance captain, of a supervisor or whatever, kind of change their personality a little bit and turn them into somebody that I knew they weren't. So as easy it is to say, I would say a don't is to try not to let that authority go to your head, and realize that as dance captain, you're not any better than anyone else. You're not stronger than anyone else. You're not necessarily a better dancer than anyone else, a better teacher. You're just there to do that job, to help everybody. So letting that go to your head and thinking, I'm the best one here because I'm in this position, is not the way to approach it. And that's also something that I've learned the older I get, is to think, I want to make sure that everyone knows I'm on an even keel with them. Just because I'm teaching you and giving you notes and helping you in the show doesn't make me any better than you, even on a show, especially like American in Paris, for a very specific example, I was not the best dancer in that company ever, and that's okay. But I had the tools necessary to teach the people and to maintain the show. So I tried my best not to ever let that get to my head to think, well, I'm better than anyone else, because I did not. I'm trying to think of any other. I'm sure there are a lot of major don'ts. I think as a don't and do combination is to openly receive, even as dance captain or a person in a position of authority, is to openly receive feedback from anybody you can in a company. For example, when I was a dance captain swing combo and I'd go on for a track or a part in a show, I'm not the person who does that role from day to day. So I made mistakes. I would do things a little differently. I had different character choices, what have you. So if someone would, politely, hopefully come to me and say, hey, when you and I enter together and we're doing this, can you grab my hand this way instead? Or can you run over here instead? Of course I can. Yeah, because I'm not going to take that personally, because it's not my part every night. I'm going to make it easier for you. So I think a do is to be open to any kind of feedback and advice that other people have for you. And in the same time, don't think that because you're the dance captain, because you're a position of authority, because you're a swing, that don't think that you know everything already. And be open to other people's suggestions, because again, the ultimate goal of dance captaining, swinging, what have you, is to just make the show the best it can be. So I learned a lot to not let my own ego get in the way and think, well, I'm the dance captain, so I know this. I'm going to say, okay, if so-and-so has started to do it this way and you want me to run in with you a certain way, of course I'll do that for you. That's going to make your job easier on stage at night. I'm the one who just pops in every couple times to do
You live here. I'm just paying rent. I'm weak.
Exactly.
Weak. So last two questions. And I think this is also maybe something important to tackle when it comes to maybe a don't, but please, you would know, not know because you've done this, but just know because maybe you've witnessed other people doing this. So you've learned from other people's mistakes. Because this is always a question I've had. How not to blur those lines of, okay, now I'm your dance captain and I'm essentially your boss, and now I'm your peer and we're on a good level, and not blurring those lines of, okay, well now we're going to talk about X, Y, and Z, or how do you navigate that route?
It's hard. It's so hard, and I'll say that's definitely something that I struggle with, and it's something I'm still learning to be better at. The more I work in this position of authority, and the older I get, because you like to think everything is bright and sunny and fun and everyone's perfect and everything's great. But at the end of the day, not everyone gets along with each other. Sometimes you have great friends in the show. Sometimes you have people you don't get along with in a show. And it's very difficult, I think, from time to time, to not blur those lines together and think, okay, well, I really like you, so I'm going to go easy with you on the notes. Or I don't necessarily get along with this person, so I'm going to be tougher on them. And that can be a challenge, and it's something I'm still learning from day to day, from show to show, and it's just, again, an easier said than done moment. But what you really have to do is try to, you walk in the door. It's like, what do they say? Like when you walk into work, like you leave your baggage at home, kind of thing. Like you walk in the door and it's a totally different place, and you have to remember that and think like, okay, well, I had an argument with this person, or we went out last night, we got in a fight, whatever, fine. But then when you walk in the door, it's not out fighting anymore. You're at the workplace. So it is super duper challenging. And again, I find personally, I still have a quick trigger sometimes. Like I was saying, when I was younger and I wanted to fix everything right away, sometimes I have that quick trigger still from a personal aspect to say, I had a fight with this person, I want to fix it. Or I'm mad at that person, I want to tell them I'm mad at them. But you have to let those things go when you walk in the door. And again, that's something I struggle with still as a dance captain, even just as a fellow performer, walking in the door, realizing, okay, now we're colleagues, we're coworkers, we're not the friends we are outside, or we're not, people who don't necessarily get along like we are outside. So it's very challenging, and I wish I had a better answer of how to do it better, but I don't, because I'm still learning. I think with age I'm finding comes patience, and I'm realizing I have to be more patient with myself and more patient with the people around me, to realize that the workplace and the personal life are separate, and you have to make it as such in order to keep things as professional as possible. And yeah, that's something I really am honestly working on from day to day to day. One thing I find that's interesting, actually, to put a personal twist on this half-assed answer, is that there have been 2 different shows in the past that I've done, 2 different touring shows where I actually was dating somebody else in the cast. And I found that extraordinarily difficult to, either be in a really good place with that person or be in a really negative space with that person on a personal level, and then walk in the door, and then your colleagues and your relationship of whatever nature it is cannot get in the way. And for me, often, and I'll be totally admittedly honest with you, it did get in the way. And so that's something I'm still teaching myself, if that were ever to happen again, how to put that aside and walk in the door and say, hey, you and I are really lovey-dovey today, and I just want to sit on your lap and whatever, but I can't because we're at work. Or vice versa, you and I had a fight earlier today and we're really mad at each other, but now we're colleagues, so we have to get to work. So that for me was an extraordinary challenge, and is something hopefully in the next production I work on, if that's a problem, I'll be better at it. And then in the future, I'll get better and better and better as I grow more patient, not only with other people, but with myself.
Well, first of all, one, thank you for sharing that, because I know that's something you and I have spoken about in private. But 2, that's just that's just a practical thing of life, and in our personal lives of sometimes you might fall in love with or have feelings for someone that you work with or someone in your same industry. And, first of all, you can't help love is love, but how do I separate that and go about doing my job first? Because we're colleagues first, booze second, because we have a job to do and we have a team that depends on us to get a job done. And that's what we're being paid for.
Totally.
Last question, personal and private. Where do you see your career? No, personal and private. What do you want to have accomplished in the years ahead with your personal life and your professional life?
That's a great question. And it's something I've really been ruminating on a lot, especially due to the health crisis that our country is facing, because everything in our industry right now is essentially on pause, and we don't know when it's going to come back. So I've been doing a lot of soul searching and a lot of thinking about that. One thing that I have, one goal of mine that I still have not put away yet, is that for me in my professional career, I still have the one goal I want to meet is that I still want to be in a Broadway show on Broadway in New York City. That's something I haven't achieved yet in my career. I've done a lot of touring shows, a lot of first national tours, a lot of really good quality work, I think, so far in my career. But being in a Broadway show is still something I have not, a goal I have not checked off the list yet. I've realized as I get older, I keep saying that today like I'm old, but as I get older, I'm not going to have the career I imagined I would have as a kid. When I was a little kid and decided this is what I wanted to do, I was hoping, I'm going to be in 20 Broadway shows and get a Tony Award and do all this stuff and be on all these recordings and be super famous and whatever. And at 34 years old, I'm 34 years old right now, I realized that's not going to be the case. I'm not going to be in 20 Broadway shows. I'm, 99% sure I will never win a Tony. That I would have been devastated. Now I'm okay with it. That's fine, because that's where my career has gone. And to me, being in a Broadway show is not the end all be all of a professional career as an actor, dancer, singer. A lot of times, especially when you're younger, you think, well, Broadway's it. That's the ultimate. So that's all I want to do. And of course, that's a worthwhile goal. It's something that I still want to do. But for me, it doesn't define me, and it doesn't define any actor's career, whether you've done on Broadway or not. Your self-worth and the worth of the validation of your work should not be dependent on a Broadway credit or 2. That being said, it's a box I still want to check, just so that when I'm 70, 80 years old, I can say, you know what, I did it. I was in a Broadway show. I don't care in what capacity. I don't care if I'm in it for a week. I would just like the chance to say, I did it. And I'm proud of myself for that. Other than that, I find a lot more of my goals as I get older, as I get older, are less about my own personal achievements as a performer, and they're shifting more towards my teaching skills, my dance captain skills, my managerial skills. So I want to continue to become a better teacher and learn how to better focus on some of these issues for me personally that we've discussed today, about how to work with people better, about how to define relationships better, and how to teach a show, how to teach a class, how to impart the knowledge I have to people more effectively. So I'm just trying to be, not still, of course, the best performer I can be, but I'm working now as my career is kind of shifting to be the best teacher I can be, the best dance captain I can be, the best manager I can be. So I still have personal goals of Broadway shows and performance goals, but again, I'm 34 and I've had some injuries, and my body as a dancer is not the same as it used to be. So I'm being realistic about that and saying, of course I can still do certain things, but there are some things I can't do anymore. So what else can I focus my energy on? Personally, honestly, things are so in flux right now that I don't know. I'm honestly just trying to be a better person from day to day, and realizing a lot of the flaws and a lot of the issues that I have just as a person in general are things that I'm trying to work on. I'm trying to be more patient with myself. I'm trying to be more patient with other people. I'm trying to be more open-minded about a lot of things. I'm trying to do more things like more volunteer work and more advocacy for things, just because I just want to be the best person that I can be. And again, as I said earlier on in this, that one of my passions in life just in general is to help people. I love helping people. I love teaching. I volunteer at a food bank in New York City when I'm there. I'm currently volunteering for a letter writing campaign right now for the upcoming 2020 election. I just love to help, and I don't expect anything in return for those kinds of things. And I just want to keep going forward with that as much as I can, and not only be the best me that I can be, as cliche as that sounds, but improving upon myself, but to help other people as much as I can so that I can help improve everyone's life that's around me, hopefully.
Well, and I think you just stacked on something that's so important. If not, it's very hard to do, to be of service, and to be of service humbly, not expecting anything in return, and to be of service into a way where that feeds your soul and that makes you feel good at the end of the day. Because when we talk about like when we die in our legacy, yeah, all the big things it's all well and good, but making a small impact on someone's life, that's even just as important as I donated millions of dollars or I helped construct this foundation. And I think sometimes we forget. I know I definitely forget. It's the acts of small service that matter most, and it's the individual people who we touch in our lives, and that is your legacy in a sense. So, thank you for sharing that.
Of course. Yeah, I find, just to piggyback on that, one of the most rewarding things that I've done so far is this food bank that I volunteer for in New York, again, when I'm in New York City. I started going because years prior, when one of the hurricanes had come through and New York City had gotten hit pretty hard, I went to a food bank up in the Bronx just to help for a day, because I was like, well, they need help, so let me go help. And then I don't know what reminded me of it, but something one day, like a year plus ago, was like, I should find another food bank. So I found one in Manhattan, and it was like 2 hours on a Saturday morning. And you think, like, on Saturday morning, you're not working, you're not teaching, you're like, just on a personal level, like, I don't want to get up early. I don't want to go out and I want to stay in bed and hang out all day. And I was like, no, I'm going to get myself up and I'm going to go. And it was 2 hours of my Saturday. And the first time I went, I didn't realize how fulfilling such a simple thing could be. I mean, I was there like packing the bags of food in the basement of this church, out of sight of, the goings on upstairs where people were actually distributing this food. But walking in the morning and seeing a line of people already there who are in need of this food, and realizing how many people you helped throughout that day became it really became like a selfless act. I mean, I guess it's not selfless now because I'm like talking about it, but it became such a rewarding feeling that I walked away being like, that was so easy and helped so many people. Why would I not do this all the time? So I started going every weekend just because I was enjoying it, not for me, because am I getting anything out of it? No, but that's the point. I was helping other people, and that's what I wanted to do.
I concur with that sentiment 100%. And also, I don't know if you've noticed this, but I think maybe dance captaining ties into being of service because listen, it takes a certain kind of person to be in that headspace and to problem solve, and if not to manage, then to figure out the needs of other people. So it's been interesting of late because I did an interview with Julia Harnett, and we were supposed to be talking about international because she's international with her work, but we wound up talking about networking instead. And it's just, I'm finding interesting of late how all these interviews, we start up with one thing, but it really comes down to something else in our personal life at the end. I want to say thank you for Christopher for sharing his time with us, because I think that is...
Thank you for having me.
Well, no, thank you, because I always have respect for people who are going to take time out of their day, because listen, we all have the same amount of time in the day and what you choose to do with it. So I try to have respect for other people's time.
If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe so you're notified when a new episode is posted. Rate and review this podcast, and be sure to share with your friends. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on next week's episode of How to Business in Show Business.